All right, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well as we move towards the end of this Friday and the end of this work week. We've got another guy to take a look at here, and this is a guy the Seahawks have requested an interview with, so we know there's some interest, and we know that it's at least on the table. It is Patrick Graham. Patrick Graham of currently the Las Vegas Raiders, but they're making changes, and Patrick Graham is one of those things they're changing. So this is going to be a little bit difficult to maneuver. This is going to be a little bit difficult to understand, but let's do our best. Let's try as much as we can to understand the potential of a Patrick Graham hire at head coach. So, he's a defensive guy. Most of his career has spent in control of defensive elements. He's from the Belichick tree. Joe Judge took him with him to New York, and then he found his way to Las Vegas in the most recent couple of seasons. So that's the basic path he's been on. 45 years old, not old, but compared to some of these other prospects, not young either. Last 2 years as a defensive coordinator for the Raiders. He had a good 2023 under Antonio Pierce the last several games. They had a nice little run to get to 8 wins, and his defense was top 10, ninth in points per game, ninth in EPA per play. Good, good, good. And 2022, the defense was bad, really bad. 24.6 points per game, 26th. 0.069 EPA was 30th. So that was a piss poor effort by the defense for sure. Really, they don't have a lot that they're working with there in Vegas over the last couple years. They've got Chandler Jones, whatever left they can get out of him. They've got Max Crosby. They've got a couple of young guys this most recent year that I like the Divine Diablo guy. I like him, but it's not a great chunk of talent he's got working for him out there. And I'd say this most recent year he did a pretty good job. Maybe you attribute that more to Antonio Pierce because he was the linebacker coach, and it is notable that Antonio Pierce jumped Graham to become the head coach when McDaniels got fired rather than Graham just taking it. So I don't know what's up there, but it was a decent couple years for Patrick Graham in Las Vegas. And then we get to New York, his previous stint where he was the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator for 2 years. And it's kind of the opposite, ain't it? It's kind of going the other way. The first year, pretty okay. Not a lot to work with, not ninth in points per game allowed, and 16th in EPA per play. So it's an above average to good defense in the NFL. Now the team was 6-10, but that was actually impressive given all the stuff they were trying to overcome that year. That was a team that started like 0-5, I think. So they went from 0-5 to 6-10 on the back of a defense that played really well and an offense that was avoiding turnovers. Unfortunately, in 2021, nothing went right for the Giants. 4-13, 23rd in points allowed, 21st in EPA per play, and it was a bad defense again. And it was a defense that, I mean, you take a look at some of the players, it's not great, but that was the defense that had Julian Love, our old buddy, still currently part of this team as of right now. Xavier McKinney, good player, really like him. They had, I think, Adoree Jackson that year. It was the first year they got him, and that was a marriage that really didn't work out. They had some pieces in place that were supposed to be good, and it just didn't work out, and things regressed heavily. I think that the stench of Joe Judge cannot be overcome, but it's still not a great mark on his resume. And honestly, I'm going back through these seasons and I'm trying to find good marks on the resume, and it's kind of hard to do so, right? It's kind of hard to find anything that stands out. Honestly, what he did in 2023 might be the best thing he's ever done. And it's not like it's a great defense, it's a good defense. But you go back to 2019, his previous stint as a defensive coordinator in Miami, he was the DC for the tanking Dolphins. Remember the tank for Tua Dolphins? 31 points per game allowed, 0.125 in EPA, 32nd and 32nd, worst in the league by far. Yeah, that's not something you want to brag about. Hey, I was the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins that tanked for Tua. So before that, you go back to the Green Bay Packers. He was the linebacker coach and run game coordinator in 2018. 2018, I believe, was the year that the Packers were bad enough to finally fire Mike McCarthy. Now, they did have some notable linebackers like Blake Martinez in one of his last great years, 144 tackles, 10 for loss, 5 sacks. He also got decent production out of guys like Kyler Fackrell, 10 and a half sacks. Also, kind of a tail end Clay Matthews season here, 3.5 sacks near the end of his career. And the Packers didn't run the ball that much. They ran the ball efficiently. Their EPA was 10th. Their run EPA, let me specify here, run EPA was 10th, but they didn't run the ball that much, so it was still 22nd in total yards. So I'm looking at 2018 for him, and I'm saying, am I impressed? I mean, it's not bad, but I'm looking at this and going, yeah, these are the results of a guy who I want to be my head coach. And maybe that doesn't necessarily have to mean that much, but I'm looking for something to hang my hat on here. And again, the best I can do is 2013, and that's not awful, but what else do we got? New York Giants. Actually, this was before Joe Judge, right? This was before Joe Judge got there. This was the Ben McAdoo Giants. He was there for 2 years as a defensive line coach on one really good Giants defense and one really bad Giants defense. JPP, Olivier Vernon, Damon Harrison, that was Snacks. You guys remember Snacks? Dalvin Tomlinson, Jonathan Hankins had some pretty good players, had some success with them, but in 2017 the bottom dropped out. Defense was bad again. Everything was bad. Before that, he spent a lot of time in New England. He spent some time as a linebacker coach, and okay, there's some stuff here that I don't mind. He's working with Jamie Collins, Donta Hightower, Jared Mayo, who just got the head coaching job in New England, and Jonathan Freeney. So did some nice work with developing some linebackers over a couple years, working with some nice linebackers. The 2 years before that, 2012, 2013, he was the defensive line coach. Guys like Chandler Jones, Rob Ninkovich, Chris Jones, not that Chris Jones, a different Chris Jones, Joe Villano, a little bit of Vince Wilfork at the end of his career, Trevor Scott at the end of his career. He was a linebacker coach prior to that, 2020, 2011. Mayo, Rob Ninkovich, Gary Guyton, Brandon Spikes. So he worked with a lot of really impressive defensive pieces and was part of some impressive defenses. But are you looking at this and thinking, oh, he's the architect, or are you thinking Bill Belichick is the architect? I think we know the answer there. I don't think it takes a genius to figure out who the architect is of these defensive players and their impressive plays and their impressive results. It's not Patrick Graham. He was a defensive assistant in 2010. Good defense that the Patriots had that year, 8th in the league in points per game allowed. And the only other thing is he spent a year as a defensive line coach for the Toledo Rockets in 2009. So, I don't know. I'm not really feeling this resume, guys. There's a couple of flashes. Like what he did with the Giants in 2020 was okay. What he did this most recent year for Las Vegas was good. But other than that, I'm seeing a lot of things that I'm not intrigued by at all, really. I'm seeing a lot of things that I'm kind of running away from, honestly. So I can't see this one. I know this guy's gotten head coaching buzz for a while now, but to me, he's kind of another guy who I have to ask, and I don't bring this up that often because I am in a position where I believe that anything would be better than just sticking with what you had in Carroll, because at least this will be something that'll be easy to move off of in a couple years if it doesn't work. But what's the point? This is another defensive coordinator guy with mediocre results lately who doesn't really like to blitz. We already had that. The only difference is this guy's way younger and going to be way easier to fire, but let's skip that part. See you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming later.